that is an anthropological understanding of people and where people come from. Okay, basically, uh, for most of up until the 1900s, everybody, I'm gonna say everybody in the West, because there's a different epistemology in Asia. So, is the world is 6,000 years old, and that's because that's about how old civilization is. Uh, 'Cause human civilization didn't exist until agriculture was invented or discovered. That we could grow food, so you didn't have to be hunter gatherers following herds or chasing food. And we didn't have private property till we got civilization, because nobody built anything. You didn't have nothing what you couldn't carry, following the herd or hunting for food. And that the Africa he's talking about is not the Africa you see today. That the Sahara Desert that you see in North Africa, or the desert part of North Africa, uh, didn't exist 40,000 years ago. Might not have existed 6,000 years ago, and that was all green space, and the Mediterranean Ocean wasn't there. So when people walked out of Africa, they walked over to Europe. I mean, and the further north they is, you had these glaciers, the ice age, and all that kind of stuff. And the notion of scarcity creates a different culture than the notions of abundance. So you're right. Where I don't want to say life is easier, but where food and those kinds of necessities are not scarce, people have tendency to be more in community. Where they are scarce, people are in competition for their individual survival, and everybody who is not you fundamentally is an enemy. So you really revert back to what Hobbes and other uh, social philosophers call the state of nature, and so there's can be multiple states of nature. So in a place of abundance, the state of nature can be, hey, it's pretty cool here. In the case of a place of harsh weather, uh, not a lot of food, no ability to grow food, have to hunt for it, you create a different culture and a different mindset. And we are genetically products of these cultures, okay, that fundamentally, as a species, like all species, you breed out the most, you breed into the most dominant characteristics that suit your environment. So somebody that is genetically, their genetic history is from a hostile environment will ultimately become hostile people. And they're going to be genetically predisposed to be hostile people, because that's what it took to survive in the environment that they were in. For somebody who was genetically the descendants of somebody in a much uh, more abundant environment, their dominant genes are more social, etc. But as long as we don't understand that evolution about human beings, as long as we stuck with these myths about Adam and Eve and the snake in a garden, that kind of shit, you can't make no rational sense out of your condition if the way you're defining reality is a function of origin myths. And they all myths. They shit people make up because they need an answer to how we got here. And this story works for these people, that story works for these. And the other interesting thing about origin stories, origin myths, is they all sound alike. Once you get past the superficial, They all got the same basic mechanics. Uh, 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 God didn't create uh, Adam and Eve for the Garden of Eden. If you Greek, if you were Greeks 2,500 years ago, you said Zeus created humans, man, and the gods did that after they battled with the Titans. Now, all of these stories have this because it ain't but one set of people, it ain't but one set of genetics. That's Homo sapiens. Okay. Now there were other humanoid uh, folks here, but they didn't make it. Okay. The remaining, we're the result of the folks that survived, that made it, and quote, we're Homo sapiens, which, crazy as it sounds, means wise man. Okay, and I'm still wondering how we came up, how anthropologists decided to call this species, this iteration of humanity, wise man. But we do have a rational facility, the ability to reason, if we can figure out how to manage our emotions and our instincts and everything of and so without that next level of awareness, you get looped around in all these crazy ass stories, and people can make up stuff if they're good storytellers, and then people go believe it. Okay, and you really organize the whole world around a series of myths that people internalize, and that becomes the operational reality. And it's got very little to do. Now, it is a reality, but it's got very little to do with the underlying physical realities of why we function the way we are. What Aristotle called said man is a rational animal. And I would suggest that we have spent all our time focused on the rational and never understanding the animal part. And I would suggest that, like Robert Howland, the the great science fiction novel, that he said man is not a rational animal, man is a rationalizing animal. Okay, and so we make up stories to justify the reality that we want or that we find ourselves in, because we do have that need as a species. We have that the reason you can find God everywhere is because everywhere you'll find us, we always have the question: how did we get here? What's this about? How did it come? And you need an answer. And in lieu of some empirical basis, you reason to that. You can't prove it. You choose to believe it, and it's a rational belief. It just ain't empirically verifiable. And somebody else's rationalization of that is as quote legitimate as yours, and then it becomes about who is the strongest to impose their fiction on others, because whoever can win that battle is now in charge of the reality that we all live in.